Next, let's look at how to gather additional statistics that are not automatically provided by ProModel. So when you run the model and then you view if you go to analysis and go to output viewer, then it gives you the standard set of performance metrics that ProModel automatically generates. Now you can save that file and export it to Excel and analyze it and uh, and write a report and so on. Okay, but what if you want something that is not automatically generated by ProModel? So then we can define variables. Okay, so here, so we looked at macros, we looked at attributes for entities, right? So now we're going to look at variables. Now variables can be defined, and then we can select what sort of statistics should be collected and reported back to us using those variables. So like for example, uh, here we don't know what is the total WIP count for the red part, the WIP count for blue part in the entire system. We don't get that information from the from ProModel automatically. So we can define variables. Okay, we'll start with the prefix v, and then we will call this okay blue whip. Okay, for blue parts uh, work in process inventory. Okay, and this is going to be an integer value. All right. Now, the statistics that we're going to gather is time series based on time, because you want to figure out, how long WIP was 0, how long WIP was 1, how long WIP was 2, and then compute a weighted average of that. So this has to be time series. So there are other options that are possible. We will look at that, but for now it is time series and it is time weighted. Okay, and we can set up an icon in the layout. We'll see how to do that in just a second. Okay, next again we start with the V, red whip, and it's going to be the same. Okay, now having defined the variable, then now we have to go and um, measure the variable. So we have to go to um, arrivals, right? So we have blue parts intake and red parts intake, right? So here in logic, we can enter increment. Okay, so let's do it here. Okay, increment v, and this is blue part. So blue part whip. Okay, now if you simply say increment blue part whip, it will increment value by 1. But if it is not 1, then you have to say comma and how many. And this is 3. So every time there is an incoming blue part, so we will get 3 of them. Okay, so and for the red part, again increment v red whip comma 2. Okay, all right. Now if you leave it like this, then it will keep on, the WIP will never go down, it will keep on going up and up and up. So now we have to bring it back down, and where would that happen. So that's going to happen when the finished um, product is produced. Okay, so from sort, okay, when it is routed to the finished products, so we need to go to processing, okay, and from sort, okay, so here we will, okay, now we can do it either move logic or here. So let's do it here. Uh, so decrement, so that will be DEC. Okay, so this is red pot. So we see V red whip, comma 2. No, not comma 2. See, when arrival was, every time part arrives, we have 2 parts of red and 3 parts of blue coming in. But we accumulate them into batches of 6 and 4. So here the red parts are accumulated by 4 units, so we need to decrement this by 4, and blue part should be decremented, so V blue whip by 6. Okay, so now at parts intake WIP goes up, and when the finished goods are produced the WIP comes down. So now and then we're going to take weighted average. Okay. And what about cycle time? How long does it take from part intake to finished goods? Okay. Or even when it is shipped. Okay. So how long does the part stay in the system? Right. So we will mark the time coming in, all right, for a part. So we go to arrivals again. So now we add one more line to this logic, and that is okay. So now we need to mark the incoming time to each individual entity. So we have to define attributes for that. Okay, so we'll call that attribute. Okay, so we say A for attribute, and we'll call it time in. Okay, and that's not integer, that's real. So right click and select real. Okay, so that's an attribute which will be associated with all the entities. So we can then go to arrivals. All right, so now we will enter the code. Okay, a attribute time in, and that is equal to, okay, so Pro Model has a clock function that keeps track of the time during the simulation run. Okay, and we can specify what kind of time we want to use. So let's say time clock in minutes. Okay, and we need that for red part as well. Okay, so here is where the time gets the incoming time is marked. Okay, so you have a timestamp there, and then we go to processing. Okay, and we're going to compute cycle time. So we need variables for that. Okay. So let's go to variables. And then we say v cycle um, say blue cycle time. Okay, and that's integer. I'm sorry, that's real. And we have v red cycle time, and that's also real. Okay, so now we have the incoming time stamped at part intake. So let's go to pack and ship. Okay, so here, well, we will do it here for at sort. Okay, so until the time it's still in production process. Okay. If you wanted the whole system time, then we can define one more set of variables for that. So here, after decrementing the WIP, then we can say V red cycle time equal to, so now once again clock, okay, minute. So now it's going to take the current time, and then from that you subtract the time in. So that will be attribute time in. Okay. So for that entity, so what is the time in? So that will be calculated there. And then we do the same thing here. So this will be V blue cycle time equal to clock minutes minus attribute time in. Yeah. So now we have the WIP accounted for and statistics gathered, and then we have the time the parts are in work in process.